What's up, packet people? So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can sanitize a packet capture. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you want to share some network traffic and you want to use it for a presentation or upload a video like I'm doing. Or for a lot of you that you've been asking on my channel, how can I sanitize my network traffic before uploading it to an AI model to help me out with the analysis? So before you upload anything to DeepSeek, OpenAI, any of them, even if you control it, you might want to consider sanitizing that network traffic. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I do it. Now there's a handful of tools that you can use to use this. Now the simplest one that I have found is a tool called TraceWrangler. This was written by a fellow packet head named Jasper. Thanks Jasper, you are awesome. So TraceWrangler, I've included that in the description down below. You can download that. It's a Windows only tool, but it makes it very easy to sanitize the Pcap, pull out payloads that you don't want to share, and even change IP address. So let me show you how to use it. So before actually getting into the tool, I wanted to show you a quick peek at the packet capture that I'm going to sanitize. So here was just a simple TCP conversation that I had to wireshark.org. And here you can see that I've got a private IP, I've got a public IP out here that I hit. Here you can see a client hello going to wireshark.org. And this is an encrypted conversation. However, it could be that if I'm sharing this with somebody else, uploading this to DeepSeek or doing something else, anything off my network, there could be aspects of this that I don't want to share. So how can I sanitize this packet capture? Let's go ahead and take a look. So first I'm going to open up TraceWrangler. You can get it in the link in the description down below. So I'm going to first take that packet capture and I'm going to import it into TraceWrangler. And just for my purposes, I just called this don't share, just so I know that this is the packet capture that I don't want to share. And here we can see that file, we can see the first frame time, how long it lasted, how many frames, and right now at present, there's no task assigned for anonymization. So let me get my head out of the way for you for the rest of this. So I'm just gonna go to anonymize files next, and now this is a function that I can run against this packet capture. Okay, my head's back now. So in this part of the tool, here you can see the task that you wanna run against the packet capture. So let's just talk our way through this. First, we're gonna talk about the payload. Now, by default, we can see remove all unknown layers is checked. Cut away bytes from packets. So what this means is that as TraceWrangler reads through a packet, if it reaches a header that it doesn't understand or a payload that it doesn't understand, it simply removes it. But it maintains the length of the overall packet. Next, you have truncate packets after a specific layer. So we can cut away all the things that we don't know. Next, we can say, you know what? I just don't want any payload past a certain point. So this could be keep everything up to TCP, keep everything up to UDP, and then just cut out the payload. I'm going to be honest with you, this is the one that I think I use the most. Not just cutting away stuff that I don't know, but also just dump the payload after TCP, because that's where I want to focus my troubleshooting. Next, if you just don't want to use these first ones, you just want to use this last one, or you can really use them all together. It'll just do it in order. This final checkbox will just say truncate packets after a specific offset. So this means go to that offset and just cut the packet right there. So that can be useful if you want a very specific area where you want the payload to go away. Sometimes I'll use that if I want a part of the payload, but just not much of it. Okay, so that's with the payload itself. Now, like I mentioned, I think the one that I use the most is this one right here, just to cut off the packet payload right after the transport layer. So next you have Pcap NG. So what do we want to do here as far as anonymizing it? So here we're saying we want to replace, do we want to sanitize any comments that might be in there? How about the interface header blocks, interface description, name resolution header blocks, any capture filters? This is information that we can preserve if we choose to, or we can choose to cut it off. For me, depending on the circumstances, I might choose to pass this through, but it really just depends on where I'm sharing the file to. Next, if we go to layer 2, so I'm just going to focus now on Ethernet, this is going to ask the question, do you want to maintain your MAC addresses? Do you want to keep those around? One reason you might think about sanitizing them is that a lot of times MAC addresses can tell you about the types of devices that you have on your local network. Are you a Windows heavy environment? Are you Apple heavy environment? Do you have a lot of Sony devices? What are the MAC address manufacturers that can be seen on your network? So you can decide whether that's something that you want to replace or if you want to pass through. If you do want to replace it, this is where you can feed a list to TraceWrangler and you can say, these Macs I want to be replaced with this Mac. You can add those one at a time. Or if you'd like to, you can just say, you know what, just go ahead and randomize them and just come up with some MAC address that's not the original. Next, how about IPv4? So this is where there's a very useful feature. Again, thanks Jasper for this one. I'm just going to say replace, and I'm going to say replace IP addresses by this list here and auto mode. So what this does is this will import the IP addresses that you see in your packet capture, and it will suggest how to replace them. So remember those original IPs that I had in the packet capture, it's suggesting, hey, on the client side, that 192.168, just want to turn that to 0.1, and then that server out there, how about 10.10.10.1? Is that going to be enough of an anonymization? Works for me, and then I can just take and randomize the rest, or I can preserve the rest. It really just depends on how secure I want to be with sharing out any address spaces that I'm using internally, or the addresses that I'm hitting out on the web. Now down at the bottom, this is one we want to make sure that we check as well. Recalculate CRC. So keep bad checksums bad, or you can fix them. So this is one by default that's checked, so usually I leave that as well. Next, we're going to come down to TCP, and this lets us decide, do we want to change the TCP ports? Maybe we're hitting a specific port, we want to change it to be something else. That's something that we can adjust. And then at the end, if I just take a look at output, settings, where is it going to write to, what's the name it's going to use, and I'm just going to say OK. So once I've done that, I've went ahead and gave it some settings. I've chosen what I want to preserve, what I want to pass through, and what I want to adjust. There's a whole lot of other options that we could have demonstrated here, but I just looked at the simpler ones that I use in most cases when I'm sanitizing a Pcap. So now we just come down to the bottom, we just say run. Okay, right away up here you can see task complete, so let's go ahead and check out our sanitized Pcap. So here's the new Pcap. If you notice, the name that it appended was anon. So the original name, don't share _ anon. And now we can see the new IPs that are there. So let's go ahead and see what we did. We have the different IP addresses, and we went ahead and stripped the payload off after the transport layer. So the reason why that's pretty useful is I can still get in here, I can still do my sequence and acknowledgement number analysis, I can still see options that are there. I can come down here if I have any retransmissions, I can still troubleshoot those. So it still gives me a look at what my network is doing and how it's handling traffic. And if I need to take a look for any packet loss situations or window issues or TCP indicators, and when I don't need to have the payload. So I highly suggest you take a look at TraceWrangler. You can use other tools to do this. However, this is a simple one that I often use when I need to sanitize a Pcap. Remember, before you share anything to another entity off your network, or even sometimes within your enterprise, you might consider sanitizing that traffic. And especially when you're doing any kind of analysis with an AI model that you do not directly control. And even if you do control it, you still want to be careful. So thanks for stopping by, Packet people. I will see you again in another video.